Welcome, everybody, to the One Fear Per Year podcast. I have a very special guest on today, and I don't want to delay it all in introducing her to you. Her name is Kara Haug. Kara, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am very excited to be here because you're in a very interesting line of work that we'll get into in a little bit. But before we talk about that, how has fear shown up in your life? Were you a very fearful child, adolescent? What did that look like for you?
Uh, yes and yes. I really do feel like fear has been my biggest obstacle to get through and get over because, I mean, no offense to my parent growing up, my mother, but she was the person who was extremely nervous that anything would happen to us and like literally would give us messages to my brothers and I that anytime we would leave the house, like we could possibly die. No joke. Like, you know, even with my husband, we went to go ride our bikes on the rail trail near our house. And when we went to go do that, she's like, someone got hurt on there real bad and just got stabbed. And we're like, "Come on, like, really? It's a beautiful day. Can we just go enjoy it?" So that kind of, and she had her own fears, which I understand right now as an adult, but really, I mean, trepidation was, like, how I operated, and just fearful of showing up as who I am, fearful of, um living into my potential, things like that, like, it has really been what has held me back the most, for sure, in my
Mhm.
life.
And that is so interesting that you talk about parents and how we're raised, and it really does leave such an imprint. And if we're not able to do what you're doing, which is identify and really gain awareness around that, we will let that dictate how we show up and how we parent and
Yes.
all of that. So, what have you done, even in regards, let's say, I know you're a parent. So, with
Mhm.
your own kids, how have you worked through that own fear in your life to then maybe change that narrative for them?
Yeah, I think just trying to gain perspective. There's times where I have said things. I don't know if you know the show The Goldbergs at all. But the mom on that show sometimes will be like, I know this guy named Cousin Larry's best friend's son or something like this who got hurt, and we'll bring that up. Um, and her name is Beverly. And so there's times if I go in that direction or say something that's kind of like that's a little unrealistic, where my family will call me Beverly. Like, okay, are we reading Beverly? you know, as a way to joke around. And then it helps me like pull back and be like, is this being real? But also because I've recognized that there's a lot of things that I had to be very aware of, of what I was bringing into my kids, and I already know the areas where I, um, am not happy about, where I was like, "Oh, I just, like, continued that generational trauma," you know? But then recognize and then seek to repair, and try to change that. One of the things that I'm really proud of is we've had, like all of the matriarchs in my family has had a fear of water, and I almost drowned as a kid and things like that, but I got my kids into swim lessons so early, and they both love water. Like, I used to be the kid who stood outside of the pool because I was so afraid. I still can't really jump in as an adult because I was terrified. And I was like, I will not have my kids be the scaredy cat that I was. And they both love jumping into the pool. They love swimming. They're good swimmers. And I just have felt like that's one thing I feel really proud about. It's like, I broke that. Like, so just, I don't know, like gaining perspective, and then letting them try and recognizing that, nothing is ever going to be completely, like, what's the word I wanna say? Like, safe proof, or I don't know if that's the correct terminology, it's not, but, um, there's always risk,
Mm.
in anything. And so we just have to see which risks we're willing to take and what we're not. And so,
That's really well put. So, what risks were you willing to take to break through some of the fears that you've had in your own life? Like, what was the thing that was worth it to go, I'm going to do this thing even though I'm terrified?
yeah. Well, I think it's maybe my business is one of them. Um, because it is strange. And I would say that it's still a work in progress. I call myself the turtle. I've always been a slow mover just in general, but I come to things slowly and I think it's okay to like I definitely overthink and process too much, but it's also allowed me to do things when I'm ready and when I feel like I have the tools, the coping skills to enter in even if I'm gonna like, knowing failure is part of it, knowing you make mistakes. I've always had to do it where I'm like, "Okay, now I have the coping skills to, like to care for myself for when that does happen," So, never in a million years did I ever expect to become a sexual health educator. I've never thought that was ever gonna be what I was gonna do. I never thought I would ever have a business, like, that was just a skill set I didn't believe I had. Um, and it's just like learning every day. And for me, it's been baby steps and knowing that um, I've just had why I've wanted to do it be what guides me. Um,
And what is that? I am very curious. How did you become a sexual, a self, a sexual health educator?
so the quick answer to that is I didn't want people to hurt anymore. That's the quick answer. I worked so much in my lifetime with kids and parents in social services jobs, in ministry jobs. I actually was a youth minister. That led me into this, which also people find confusing. And I have a theological background, master's of theology, which also people find confusing. But who knows which ways we're taken. But I just started to see the way our culture doesn't talk about sex, the way we always are fumbling through life, trying to learn about our bodies and relationships, in an aspect where we have declared something secretive and, um, have put labels onto it. But really, what has happened is so many of us have experienced trauma in this area that has rendered us speechless. But silence, equals shame, as we've heard from Brene Brown and things like that. And so we continue to harm and we continue to walk in this world carrying shame that we don't need. And I have seen this in all demographics of life, in all classes, right? Very rich to extremely poor. And I'm just like, what are we doing? we are, we have decided to um, play into the narrative that we can't talk about things. And if we do, then bad things will happen. But what's happening is harm is happening all the time. And by not talking about it, harm continues to happen. And so that's why I've decided I was like, this has affected my own family, and I'm like, I'm just kind of tired of it. And I want people, I think we all deserve to have healthy relationships and to know what they are, to understand how our body works, and to not be afraid of it. And like the only way we're able to do that is to enter into some awkward conversations. And my tagline that I say to everyone is, "You are worth the awkward." And it's also something for me to like adopt and learn from because, like, as we all know, sometimes we get into the areas of life that we also need help with. And I was like, oh, right. I need to remember that I am worth speaking up for, that I am able to enter into hard conversations, which we're all still learning how to do.
That okay. I am fascinated because the fear of sexuality was huge in my life as a teenager.
Mhm.
and just a lot of confusion around it, and the generation of my parents of not talking about it. And my dad was a closet gay man who lived a double life and betrayed my mom on, so many occasions we probably can't even count.
Right.
So this whole topic, talk about a fear
Oh, yeah.
for a lot of people, like you're saying. And so, in my opinion, I'm like, man, you have not just broken generational uh, traumas or how you show up in life, but you have demolished them by going into a field like this. I think that is so brave, and we need it. Like you were saying, we need this conversation to have with our kids, to have with ourselves, our partners, all of it. So I'm gonna be thinking about this interview for a long time after we get off of this call, because this is huge in my own life.
Mhm.
What would you say to someone who came to you and is fearful of having a deep sexual connection with somebody else, maybe based in that shame,
Mhm.
based in past things? How do you approach that with somebody?
Well, usually what I do when if people come to me for coaching is we go through the history really of their lives. Like, um, how were you taught about sex? What was your relationship like with your caregivers? How did they show affection? What did you learn from them? Because most of what we're doing, like our childhood impacts us more than we realize. Everyone's like, it's in the past. It's like, well, but
What is it?
that is it. Like, it's something that, I mean, what I've learned in through doing this work is that we are always looking to get our needs met. And sometimes we do that in poor ways, right? We do that in ways like, as your father might have done of being deceptive and stuff, and but also not being able to clearly he didn't think he could live into who he really was, right? And so we're always trying to find a way to get our needs met. And in relationships, I tell people all the time, is where we make the most mistakes because of that. Because many of us were not given the role models maybe that we've needed. We weren't given the language that we've needed around this. And so we're just like really learning about it. And so I would have people just kind of reflect back and look at like, what are the things that you learned? What was okay? What was not okay? When you showed emotion, was it met with care and compassion, or was it met with stop it? You know, because then we also learn, oh, my emotion or my needs are too much. They're too much for people, right? Or my heart is too hard for people. Or maybe we felt like we were burdens. And so, like, our natural response to that is to build up walls and to build up a protective layer, which then makes it hard for us to put those layers down or those walls down to enter into a vulnerable relationship. And I always talk about, like, with parents now, the number one thing I want them to work on with their kids is rejection, because everyone's going to feel it. And so, how are we teaching our kids to handle rejection and the coping skills around that? Because you can't enter into a vulnerable, intimate relationship without rejection standing by your side, right? It's going to happen. So, and one of the things I tell people all the time, what I've learned as a sexual educator is that I'm also, um, it's, what did I say? It's grief. Like I'm working with grief all the time with people. And so it's just, it plays into all of that. And I think once we recognize that we're all bringing this stuff to a table, then we can start shifting through it and moving it around and like putting pieces in different orders and trying to figure that out.
Yes, so once you identify, you gain the awareness, and then is there a specific reframe that you want people to do, like, if they're viewing a certain situation one way, what what's a good reframe? How do they rewire how they process?
Well, I do think it's different for each person, but I would say, like, I mean, it's a lot of rewiring. Like, so many of our messages that we have gotten have been incorrect, have been wrong. And even in the aspect of, I would say, like, in America, the way we even come to look at sex is performative because our education is based out of porn. It's not about connection. It's rarely about pleasure. And so we're always constantly coming from a place of what do I look like? How am I being how am I being perceived instead of connection? What are we feeling? What does that touch feel like? How are we being together? You know what I mean? And then we're also comparing ourselves constantly of like, well, what does my experience look like to this person? And really what I've been learning is like part of sexuality and sex education is saying like, it's really up to you. It's whatever feels the best to you. You don't have to be concerned what every other person is doing, right? We get to choose. We get to choose what that is for us. And each person is different. What we have to learn how to do is what we have to learn how to do is then talk about it. What does it mean to me? What does that look like? And then how do I relay that message to other people? And that's where we're not given the tools very well.
Mm, yes, the communication skills as well, for sure, and being able to even identify first, what is it that I want? What is it that feels good?
Mhm.
Sometimes we're so detached even from that piece of it.
Yeah.
So that self confidence, self awareness, real introspection piece of it. So, since this is called the One Fear Per Year podcast,
Mhm.
is there something that in the future you want to do, but there's that fear, kind of a resistance that you have in mind to walk through and to face, or something that you've recently done like that?
So right now for me, because I've recognized I have built up some walls in my life lately. And so I was a dancer growing up and I stopped dancing because I had a knee injury and like my joints are kind of terrible now and now I have a bad foot. But I've also recognized that dancing has been the thing that has healed me the most. And my body is not at all the same as it used to be as a 20-year-old who danced in college. And so I just have been going when I can to a contemporary dance class where they let me wear shoes, because I can no longer dance barefoot. And really what I've been wanting to do is get back into the dance world, even though it's going to look different for me. And I like am really scared about it. And I think it's because my body moves differently. And there's dance is vulnerable. And I have been very protective of myself lately. And I know that I am being pulled in that direction to learn how to let go again and to just like offer find myself again, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense, and I cannot wait for this for you, because I know what you mean about the vulnerability and the liberation in being able to dance and without alcohol.
Right.
Like sober dancing, let's say.
Yes, for sure.
And we're out of time, but I have one last quick question for you.
Mhm.
If there were an opposite word of fear, what would that word be for you? Like the exact opposite?
I just had it and it left. I think maybe opportunity. Invitation. Maybe that's the word, invitation, right? Like, I feel like fear is actually inviting you into the space that you actually really need to go.
Ooh, it's the cave we fear to enter that we
Yes.
must go into.
Yeah.
I love that, Kara. Thank you for, oh my goodness, for the work that you're doing in this world and for showing up despite the fear, because that at the end of the day is what truly matters. Is we can feel the fear all we want, but if it's on our heart and we know that is our path, um we need to take those steps. We need to be on that journey, and I know that you are on that journey, so thank you for that, and everybody else, one fear per year, whatever that thing is on your heart to do, go for it. We are over here encouraging you and cheering you on as we do our own little scary things in the process. Love to y'all.